And my experience running my business with a lot of intervention of social media in growing it and making my sales, I learned that people only are interested in the content of your social media if it's probably educative, in a way that they appreciate the education you're trying to give them. And if it is entertaining also, there are all these aspects of social media, and these days we've got a lot of experts in social media everywhere, that if we capitalized on that, then we will have covered the very big number of people who are on the various social media platforms. So the use of technology, the use of social media, mainstream media as well, it doesn't really have to be what it was that voter education is something that requires people to meet one-on-one. We have learned that we can still transact business and communicate without necessarily having to meet.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. My next question is on stakeholders. So collaboration with non-state actors, I believe you know who the non-state actors are. Yes. Is a very useful tool for voter education. To what extent should non-state actors collaborate and be involved in voter education?
The Elections Act actually requires the Commission to gazette regulations around who is involved in voter education. And I think this was mainly targeted at the non-state actors, and there are all these requirements that these non-state actors must comply with. And it's part of even dealing with the issues of budget and whether we have enough money and time to actually do the voter education. So I believe that non-state actors play a very critical role in voter education. They're able to do it continuously. They're able to do it in creative ways that are the specialities of other people other than the Commission. And just within the regulations that the Commission has already gazetted, then I think they would play an important role in voter education.
Okay, thank you. Caroline, I can see you have a lot of passion for this job. Yeah? So, if you are appointed today, how will you deal with the political parties and politicians without actually creating conflict? Because you talked of you are good at resolving issues.
Yeah. I did think about that, madam, It's something you'll be alive to when you set yourself up to do a job like this. And these are the players, there is no escaping from them. They are the primary stakeholders in an election process. So one of the primary skills you must have individually and collectively as a commission is how you're going to deal with the political parties and politicians and their usual way of trying to influence how things are done. And one of the things that was very alive and that came to my mind when I was reflecting about how that would pan out is if everybody thinks that, or at least believe that you're a fair referee, they will be restrained from trying to interfere with you. And I'll give an example. If you go to a traffic light and the light is working, and you know that if you wait for 2 minutes, your side will turn green and you can drive. You will wait patiently for the light to work. If you came and found the lights are orange, like is the case sometimes in Nairobi, naturally you go in. It doesn't matter whether there's somebody else coming. You go in, and before long there is commotion at the turn. I'd use that analogy to explain if the political parties and the politicians generally felt that the commission is fair, it would reduce the level of interference that they do. But the part that is still not reduced by your display and exercise of fairness and accountability, then that you have to do by really communicating with them. It still doesn't 100% eliminate. Then you must also be able to take the shock and the deals that come with that kind of commotion and remain cool and objective and consistently communicate. And if the law, regulations, and everybody is on your side, then most of the time these people will be seen to be the ones who are not, who are just trying to propagate their own objectives. So it's just that everyone must understand the commission to be the place of fairness, the place of accountability. When we say this is what we are going to do, we end up doing it, because one of the other things that came up, as again I was reflecting on this, is the primary cause of the problems we've had during election is because a lot of times, either by design or by some default, is changing the goalposts. So we go into the election saying, this is how we are going to vote, this is how people are going to come to the polling station. After they close at this and this time, we are going to count and transmit and all that. And then halfway through that process, we change. We start to do other things. And what happens in that case is now the players start to see that this change is to my disadvantage. Some will think this change is to my advantage. So as much as is possible, the commission needs to communicate how things are going to be done, including communicate how they will deal with it if there is need to change. There is, I think it is the regulation around technology by the IEBC that talks about an operation continuity plan, for example, where there is already a panel of people who in advance have anticipated what would happen, for instance, if the technology failed. If some of these are properly communicated to Kenyans and to the players, that this is how we have planned to do this thing, if we have in management, I think they call it the doomsday plan. If there is doom on this day, this is how we are going to do plan A, this is how we are going to do plan B, there'll be confidence. But if we are trying to introduce plan B that Kenyans have never heard of at the heat of conflict and failure and all that, then they don't trust that this was really the plan. They will start to think that you are saying this to sort of safeguard a certain position that you have already taken. So if these things are communicated in advance, then I think the conflicts will be reduced. And at the end of the day, really there are people who are just troublesome, especially when they want to pursue their own objectives, sometimes selfish objectives. Even that, the skill to deal with those is something we must equip ourselves with as we move along.
Oh, thank you, Caroline. Caroline, as a youth, I believe I'm right to call you a youth.
You are.
Yeah, and I believe you have the interest of the youth at heart.
Yeah.
So what framework of stakeholder engagement would you prepare to promote inclusion of special interest groups, particularly the interests of the youth, in the electoral process, if you are elected as a commissioner?
One of the things about young people is that they have their own ways that they understand communication that is sent to them. So as a commission, and myself as a young commissioner, it would be my role to educate and to appraise my colleagues and the secretariat on what I think would be the most efficient way to communicate with the youth, which is a lot of times not the traditional way we communicate. I earlier alluded to the use of social media, to the use of entertainment. If, for instance, you go to Twitter, there's a lot of humor, for example, and humorous tweets work very fast. So if the commission can adopt such new ways of communicating with young people, that would be a great way to reach out to them. Also involving them in the activities of the commission, and not just as clerks. If there is any other way we can bring the responsible people who have put themselves out and have a divergent collection of people serving even at higher levels of commission, then that would be great. I suppose even my being there as a young person would go a long way in communicating to the youth that they're actually included in what we are doing as a country.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I'll now request the Vice Chair to ask some questions.
Thank you, Caroline, for your incisive, that incisive and interesting conversation. Now, Caroline, looking at your CV, you say that in 2019, your business won an award as the most promising youth-run business in the country. Now, if you have such a promising business enterprise, why should you leave that area, which really contributes to productivity of the country and even employment of the youth that you're talking about, to come and join a body that is very much focused on political processes? What is the motivation?
Mr. Vice Chair, first of all, the benefit of being young is that you can do many things at the same time, or at least provide insight in many things at the same time. But also, as you say, this is the one of the bodies that really chart the political path of our country at every election. And my business, without a proper governance structure and a working and thriving economy that can only come from us picking proper leaders, is nothing, and it will not be there for long. So my business is now 4 years old. It is good enough. It has its own structure. It is good enough to deal and continue to serve the people who work there and our producers, and to continue thriving in the business. I just want a new challenge now. Still overall steered towards my contribution as a professional to the growth of our country, to just be at the front line in making things right, in steering our country in a certain direction. So my business will be fine. And we have already put in place structures. In fact, I had already started to think I probably need to start a new business or a new challenge, because that one has already gotten a life of its own. So that really is a motivation. It's just an opportunity, another opportunity for me to serve, to contribute, to go to the front line in making things right.
I like that. You talk of a well-governed country. In that light, Caroline, what is your vision for Kenya, and how would a well-managed electoral process contribute to that vision? 3, if you are to become a member of the IEBC panel, how would you contribute to that overall vision in ensuring that we have a well-run and managed elections?
Okay. My vision for Kenya is that it will be a place where everybody has the opportunity to pursue their dreams, and that if you work hard, if you put the effort, then your effort will bear fruit. You don't have to know anybody or to have a godfather. That just that internal drive will offer every Kenyan child an opportunity to become their best. That is really my vision for the country. And leadership is everything. There are jokes once in a while when we have a bit of political commotion. They say God gave Kenya everything, then look at the leaders that they got, because even in that set of jokes, there is actually quite some serious element to that statement. Because even if we had everything, and we know countries around the world that would be perceived to have everything in natural resources, in positioning around the globe and so on, but if leadership fails, then the country fails. In countries, for instance, look at Syria, people went there as tourists. It was a thriving economy. Just issues around leadership, they go into war, there is no country to tell. Even the things that took people there are no longer there because they've been destroyed in turmoil. So leadership really is everything. For us to achieve that vision I just described for Kenya, we have to put in place leaders. Of course, the sovereignty is with the people, so they select the leaders that they want. Our job is to just educate them on what leaders are supposed to do for them to go and make an independent decision. So as a commission, our job is really to just make sure that when people present themselves...
Before you go to the commission, the second question was, how would well-managed elections contribute to that, Kenya?
Well-managed elections would give Kenyans the leaders that they want, without any interference and so on. So in that way, with leadership and hoping that Kenyans actually select good leadership, then that would propel us towards achieving the vision that I described.
Now, role on the commission to make sure that happens, that we have good elections.
Yeah. I think what would be perceived as a good election is an election that leaves all the players feeling that they were actually given an opportunity to compete. And if they won on merit. Those who won on merit, and those who lost because the numbers were not in their favor. And for us to achieve that kind of election, one of the main elements would be transparency, that everybody understands how we are doing this thing from beginning to end, and that the commission does not deviate, as I described earlier, midway from what we have said is our path towards a transparent election. It must be also an election that is verifiable. If I have a complaint, I am able to actually be convinced on merit that actually this was an election that was conducted in a transparent way. So IEBC is at the heart of providing leadership to the country, and we do that by just giving a credible election.
Assuming you're on the commission, you've been appointed successfully, you're on the commission, a situation arises where you're in a procurement process. A tender, you're just about to award tenders. You have two successful companies that have succeeded in moving forward to the point of the award level, and you're procuring technology for elections. In the process, the commission learns, or you learn, that one of the firms is associated with the chair of the commission and a local politician. Another firm is a local firm which actually has good technology in terms of after the technical vetting, has the best technology but more expensive. The other firm, which is associated with these people, these characters, is cheap technology but not quality. The commission is divided. Some members feel we go with the cheap technology anyway because it's cheap, we're going to save money. The others feel we need quality, irrespective, based on the past experiences of technology failures. There's tension, you're not communicating, there are difficulties. How would you handle that situation?
Okay, so the first thing I see in that situation is a conflict of interest that has not been declared. So in one of the regulations by the IEBC, it was a requirement that firms that have an association with any political party, it was mainly speaking about political parties, that they should declare to the commission that they actually are associated or are providing services to political parties, so that the commission can independently see if there is conflict in that area. There is also the fact that the chair of the commission is associated with this firm. We are required as state officers, or when you have influence and you are participating in public procurement, to declare conflict of interest. So if this is a conflict that has not been declared, then it means that, of course, the chairman is hiding something, and it's the reason we are at that place anyway. So those are the two things I see in that first area of conflict of interest, and I will come to say how I think we should deal with it. The next issue is about cheap, quality, and all that. So in the procurement process, there is actually more weight given to quality in most cases. In some instances it is 50-50, but depending on what it is you're procuring, but quality and price are weighted in a decision prior to the sending out of the tender, and I think that situation would be resolved by that. By this cheap, it would be taken, signed off against a matrix that will have been prepared and issued and shared with the people carrying out the procurement process. So I think if that has not been done, then it also just means that the procurement process has not been done well, and that is sort of straightforward. You're just able to raise it, and now moving on to how to resolve such things. My experience has been that faced with facts, most people are not very courageous. It's just that when we want to go and argue our case, dialogue, discuss in a state of conflict, we are not disciplined enough to stick to the facts. So when emotions kick in, then they confuse what really is the conflict about. In a case like this, there is tension with colleagues and so on. The most efficient way I have seen to deal with situations like that, and it's been very successful, is to just do your research, and come and face colleagues with facts. Tell them this is the way it is. Most of the times they will bow, because unless they have a rejoinder, you've already faced them with the fact that this is the matrix we set up as far as what is the weight of quality compared to the weight of price. Has it been applied in this case? If the answer is no, what is the explanation? This is a company that is already giving service to political party A or B. Our regulations require that such conflict is declared in time. Have they done that? No. And really there is no conflict after that, because in a sober discussion, facts always prevail, as compared to where now you're not discussing and you're just throwing emotions around.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. I will now request Reverend Father Mutia to ask some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Caroline, allow me to take you through a few questions just to get to hear from you more. From your application, you stated that you have 12 years of experience in finance, accounting, management, consultancy, and a few other areas, which is also very, very good. And in your application also, in your CV, you say that you are also doing your master's in applied philosophy and ethics at Strathmore University, actually, which is designed to help in examining and discussing the contemporary and perennial problems. Now, I'm bringing in an issue of corruption, the issue of corruption. Corruption has been a wound in this country, and it has really done a lot of damage to our economy. As a finance person in the last 12 years, kindly, what mechanisms have you ever put in place to see that in the institutions that you ever served did not lose monies through corruption?
Okay. So yes, as you say, corruption is is a thorn in our society. It probably causes a lot of the problems that we see: poverty, lack of opportunities, and so on. So the question is, what are some of the things I have done in the areas where I have served to just make sure that this is not the case? First is creating a tone at the top. You know, it's a cliche word that people use all the time, but it actually is the case. If you work in an organization where the directors, the bosses are the ones taking allowances for trips they don't go to, or taking bribes from suppliers, it goes haywire, because you have no moral authority to question anybody on the things that they are doing. And so, I mean, it just thrives on its own. So one of the things we've done, and it is more clearer to me at Tourism Fund because I am at the top, is that we have been very clear about how we deal with people who don't comply with the ethics and the tone we have created for the organization. And we have followed through with dealing decisively with people who do not comply. So that general environment you create where the people you're working with know, if I am to do this, I am going to be in a lot of trouble, assuming that they are actually inclined in that direction. And also now preserving yourselves and making sure that these levels of integrity that you're looking from everybody else working with you, it is something that you consistently practice. Other than that, it would be just the deterrence, the other sort of, other than the mood and the tone, the other deterrents that you put in place just to make sure that people toe the line. And this would be like what you have in your policies, in what you expect, what you make your staff and people working with you sign to. This would also help in creating an environment that is free of corruption. The final one that I have would be continuous education, because you know, I'm trying to deal with that philosophy degree, but it's one of those times I have realized that I'm actually a mathematician. So the philosophy it's very interesting. I like it, but they talk about human beings being either inherently good or inherently bad, and how you gear them towards the good in them. So by education, by talking to these people, by making them feel that they're actually part of the organization, you can implore more to the good side of them that every human being has inside, as we learn in philosophy.
Thank you. Madam Caroline, allow me also to ask you this. The Constitution of Kenya requires that all persons who are appointed to constitutional commissions take oath of the office. Is that true?
That's right.
What is the value of the oath of office to you?
I think the oath is sort of a way of you voicing the expectation, and there's something about voicing something with your own, you know. Catholics like myself go for confession. One of the ways they say confession is a good thing is that you get to voice your sins. So you reduce the sins because you don't want to be voicing a lot of sins. So there's value in just voicing what you're committing to as you take office. But also there is putting yourself under the control of a higher being than yourself, you know. That's why at the end you say, so help me God. You know, just acknowledging that the task that you have is something you want to do under the guidance of a being higher than yourself. So I think that's the other value. And also just communicating to the world when you take this oath as other people listen, communicating that this is really what you should hold me account for. This is what I commit to do as I take up this job. And if you see me deviating from that, then you can question me because I actually made this oath before everybody.
So does that mean that an oath is enforceable?
It is enforceable in the sense that when you commit to do those things and then you don't do them, to the extent that it actually amounts to breaking of the law or violating the Constitution, because you also commit to uphold the Constitution in actually most of the oaths. Yeah, so it is enforceable to the extent that you don't do what you actually say you will.
So what are some of the consequences of the breach of the oath of office?
Removal from office. I think when we look at all the ways that anyone, including a commissioner, can be removed from office, it's, for instance, violation of the Constitution. And how do they hold you to account that you have violated the Constitution? It's because as you took your oath, you committed to uphold the Constitution. So at this point, you're now liable for not keeping to your oath. Yeah.
So besides removal from office, there's no action that can be taken against you?
You removal from office, you can be prosecuted, but also I think you suffer social sentencing. You know, if I come before Kenyans and say that this is what I promise to do things in this kind of way, and I break that, then my standing in society, which sometimes for some people is even a bigger thing than any removal from office, then the consequence it makes you inclined to do what you actually...
Carol, we have received some information from In Good Standing. What can you tell this panel about this?
Okay. So I qualified as a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. The rationale of keeping your membership in good standing is your participation in the activities of your professional body and so on, which I have not been able to do because I was dealing with this other work that I have. So my plan is that when I now get back into the practice of arbitration, then I will make good my membership. Otherwise, for now, I am a member of the institute. I was admitted to the institute, but I am not practicing in the trade. So for that reason, and it is only not in good standing to the extent of payment of subscription, because I was not actively participating in the activities of the association.
Thank you, Madam Karen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Father. Ms. Nganga, we have come to the end of your oral interview. Maybe I can ask if you have anything you'd like.
It's just to really appreciate the opportunity to come and express myself and learn.
And candidate of the day, some of the aspects that you have noticed from the first candidate, Kara, who actually sits in the board of the Kenya Tourism Board as well. Perhaps we can start with you. She has talked about IEBC should collaborate, when we talk about diaspora, collaborate with embassies, envoys, and also embassies, envoys, to make sure that voters in the diaspora actually get a chance to register as voters, and when the general polls come, because they cannot be able to vote here in the country, they organize how these people are going to be voting. Your take on that?
Thank you very much, Joy. And light on the onset, let me first of all take this opportunity to thank you for having me on this very, very important discussion. And maybe to just get into the discussion of the day, I just have been following this process of selecting the commissioners, and maybe if we just try to flash back where we have come from, I feel like Kenyans have actually been the leadership actually of our country has been playing games with the people, because as you know, it's several years since we had a vacancy in the commission, and we have actually taken several years to even for the president to constitute even the selection panel. However, we are happy that at least now we can see some hope, because the selection panel has already been constituted. We can see the interviews going on, and then if you look at now the process of interviewing, the way that has actually been happening, the shortlisted candidates, that 6 of them, as we were talking from the background, we were actually discussing about how these commissioners have been shortlisted. Yesterday, you saw Kenyans were really shocked to see the first candidate. The commission actually gave report that this candidate presented fake certificates from KEMU, the Methodist University. And that now raises the question, really, which criteria or which are actually, how are they doing the shortlisting? Because to the best of my knowledge, although I'm not questioning the panelists' ability to do the interviews, to conduct the selection, I would have expected that the first thing is to confirm the certificates of these people who have presented themselves for this exercise. And now they have already shortlisted that 6 from the 600 or so. And then during the interview day is when they are now telling us that this person really presented some fake documents. They should have
perhaps done due diligence before.
Yeah, and I think that could, if I were to be asked, this should have actually happened as a first step, so that at least we don't lock out some other qualified people just because we have guys who have presented fake documents. I'm now worried. How about, maybe you would be surprised, even from the other 35 who have been, who are remaining, we are also still not sure if probably some presented fake documents. We hope it will not happen. But however, I just hope this selection panel will actually up their game and make sure that Kenyans get confidence in the work that they are doing. We still hope that the commissioners that we'll have will be the best for our country, will be the people who will be able to redeem the image of the IEBC and the electoral process in general. We still question why the executive, the president who was mandated to have this selection panel in time, is now rushing at this time, because it sounds funny that it is during the time that there were questions in the court about the constitution of the IEBC, that they didn't have enough commissioners during the case of the BBI, that the president seemed like he was in a rush now to constitute the selection panel. I think it is time now, we need to redeem the image of, even our readers also need to redeem their images.
Yes, and still talking of time, Asko, perhaps you can chip in.
Go ahead.
Looking at the 2017 general polls, right now we had mass voter registration, and looking at now the IBC is not fully constituted until the interviews and the names have to be taken to the president. They also have to go to the National Assembly for approval. Are we flying so close to the sun when it comes to timelines?
Well, first and foremost, thank you very much, Brother Ben, for this opportunity.
Welcome.
Particularly that we are coming into KBC when it's very new, fresh, and beautiful like it is. Now, on to what you're asking, it takes me back to what the Kriegler Commission, told us about our elections and why we end up with such a mess every other 5 years. And among the issues that were brought forward was the fact that we seem to be in a rush every other time before our elections. We want to do things in a rush, not very properly constituted commission. The voter registration problem is somewhat hurried, and it results into a mess at the end of it all. And these are some of the things that we hoped to cushion the country from, if we were to prepare adequately for this election, this coming election. Look at the fact that now we are trying to, properly constitute the commission 1 year before the elections, despite the fact that the law in its black and white nature demands that this should be done at least 1 year before the general elections. I mean, logically, it doesn't give us a chance to, get a properly constituted commission that will run the elections as effectively as they would if, they were there before or they were there sooner than right now. So my idea would be now that we find ourselves in this situation, or we find ourselves in this position, the best way forward is to proceed with the process of getting the commissioners, the 4 commissioners, and also with the fact that Chebukati and his team have consistently, mentioned and told us that they are adequately prepared and there should be no cause for alarm. We hope that the commissioners who will be given this chance will get straight into work and familiarize themselves with the responsibilities that will be thrusted in their palms, so that moving forward, at least we have a properly done election, and that we don't get into the turmoil we always get into every other 5 years. But besides all that, the elections in Kenya are not just basically about the commissioners or the law as it is. There is more to do with politics and the leadership of the country, and equally so many other factors that might not be within the province of the IEBC to solve. Look at the fact that there are disputes with the elections every other 5 years, and we have to go through a process in court for us to get, for us to at least get to a point where we feel that justice has been done. These are things that can only be sorted out politically. No wonder, in my view, the process that the President and the former Prime Minister began of the Building Bridges initiative was intended to cure some of these problems that now we are grappling with. Despite the fact that the court has put a halt to this process, I believe that if it was given a chance, in the very end, at least some of these questions that we are asking about, if institutions as basic as the IEBC would have been solved by that process.
And still on the timelines, if we have the 4 commissioners, and of course we will be having them in the next couple of weeks,
right,
their tenure lapses in the year 2027, where we have another general elections.
Right.
What do we do? Because now we still have another issue of time. Because we need these commissioners in office, and at least they need to have a feel of the electoral process.
Right.
In the run-up to the 2027
I agree with you that there should be